Hey guys, welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast. Today on episode 236, we are starting season 6 out with a banger. This is the biggest myth of pregnancy. Let's untangle it. Hi, I'm Hilary, a serial overcomplicator. I'm also a nurse, mom to 3, and the curly head behind Pulling Curls and the Pregnancy Nurse. This podcast aims to help us stop overcomplicating things and remember how much easier it is to keep things simple. Let's smooth out those snarls with Pregnancy and Parenting Untangled, the Pulling Curls podcast. This episode is sponsored by the online prenatal class for couples. If you are looking to understand all of your different options in pregnancy and birth, come join me because it's going to help you realize that this is a myth, but there are things you can do to help it out. Okay, I would love to know what you guys think is the biggest myth in pregnancy. So come tell me over on Instagram before you get started in this episode. I think that would be fun. But for me, as someone who's watched thousands of people go through birth and pregnancy and talks to pregnant people all the time on social media, it is that you have some sort of control. Guys, I love control so much. Maybe you love control, but I feel like I love control more than the average person. I like to feel like I have like hands-on direct action in whatever the results are, right? And I think a lot of people love control. But the reality is during pregnancy, there really are a lot of things that you have no control over. And I came up with just a few things to talk about that I see people feeling like they should be able to control, but they can't always control. You can't control if the baby flips head down. And you can't control if they flip up at any point. A lot of times people are like, oh, good, my baby's head down. I'm going to be 100% fine. And then they go to delivery and find out that baby is not head down anymore. And they're like, oh my gosh, what happened? I thought we were in a good spot, right? At any point in time, your baby could do something that was super annoying and would change your birth plan. And you have absolutely no control over that. And I'm not giving this episode to just make you guys stress out about it. Because again, the stress isn't helping any of this at all. It's just helping you realize that you don't have control. And actually, as I'm doing this, my friend Onjali came on the podcast a few years ago. She had terminal cancer and was just talking about that the hospital stay that she was at, where she realized she really just didn't have control. And by letting go of things, she ended up having a better life ultimately. Again, you can't control if you get gestational diabetes. Of course, there are things and lifestyle changes that you can make that would decrease your risk of getting it, but you ultimately can't control it. There are plenty of people who have no risk factors for diabetes who end up having diabetes. Side note, I see people all the time on social media saying, well, they're testing me for diabetes and I clearly don't have it. There is no way to tell if you have it. That's how annoying it is. So it's not something that you have control over. And you can't control when your provider is going to deliver you. A lot of people want to ask their provider to deliver them, at 39 weeks, or their provider says we can't deliver you till 41 weeks. You can't control your provider at all, right? You can ask. I think asking is a great plan, but there's nothing you can do to control. And honestly, I went 12 days overdue with my last baby, and I felt some sort of guilt or shame with going that far over, which again makes absolutely no sense. I just felt like I should be able to do it. I was a labor nurse. Like I felt guilt over the fact that I couldn't control this, when in reality, I had no control over it at all. I don't know if this rings true for you guys, or if you're thinking, okay, there's areas of my life where I'm experiencing this as well, but I just wanted to give you guys some examples. We create birth plans sometimes to give ourselves a false sense of like, that's what's going to happen at birth. And I think that is actually the worst way to create a birth plan. Now, I love birth plans, guys. Huge fan of birth plans. Huge fan of the fact that you've even thought at all about what you want your birth to look like. That just like, I'm just giving you all the high fives at this point. Extra points if you use stickers and different colored pens, because that is my favorite. But when you are creating your birth plan to control, I'm using air quotes, control your birth, that ultimately is not a birth plan that is going to serve you, because you don't have any control over this. And I've honestly seen the birth plans that go the worst awry with people who are wanting to control their birth. I will not have a C-section. Well, guess what? You don't have any control over that. I will not need Pitocin. Again, you don't have control over that. And that's not, a lot of times people come in saying, It's the labor nurse's fault. We're making them do these different things. But I really am like, okay, we're not going to have Pitocin. This is awesome. And then suddenly contractions just entirely go away. And sometimes I feel like that is Mother Nature just being like, hey, I'm in control, not you. And I personally don't want to give Mother Nature any more like vendetta against me to tell me that she is in control, because she is obviously in control in my life. So then we have to talk about the things that we can control. The main thing that we can control is our attitude, feelings, actions in response to what's going on, right? We can either be mad, like going back to the birth plan, we can be mad that we had to have Pitocin, or we can be like, okay, well, we just need to have a little Pitocin to add to this. And then we can be excited about our birth. So the only thing that we can control is our feelings, thoughts, emotions, actions towards what's going on. And that's the good news, right? No matter what's going on, we can control how we're feeling about it. I remember talking with my friend Rachel, who was previously on the podcast, about how she needed to have a C-section because her baby was breech. And I initially was like, oh, she's going to be so upset. And she was like, no, it's great. Like, I'm so excited that I get to schedule it. I'm so excited that, my lady bits aren't going to stretch out. She had all of these reasons that she was excited she was going to end up having a C-section instead of being scared about it. And I was like, that is the best way to look at it. She controlled what she could control. She didn't try to control what she couldn't control, because baby's position in your womb is not something that you ultimately have control over. And honestly, good thing, because I think a lot of people, if you were able to control where baby was in the womb, we might end up hurting our babies, because who knows why they're in a certain position. It could be because of the cord or the placenta or something else. So just a reminder, and honestly, just a reminder for all of us. This is a great reminder in parents. I don't control my kids at all. You aren't going to be able to control your toddler. You're not going to be able to control your baby. There's so many things that we can't control. We can only control our actions, behaviors, thoughts, feelings towards it, right? And when we make a huge deal out of something, that is our actions, controls, behavior over something. It's not the thing that's making us kind of maybe blow it out of proportion. And again, I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to you guys. This is a hard thing for me too. So that's it. The biggest myth of pregnancy is that you have control over it. And once you learn to let go of that, by getting prepared for no matter what type of birth you have. I see some birth classes that are like, just for C-sections, just for epidurals, just for natural birth. And I'm like, you don't know what kind of birth you're going to have. Honestly, even if you think you're going to have a C-section because baby's breech, you might go in, baby's flipped, and then you're going to have a vaginal delivery. And I don't want you freaking out about that either, right? I want you prepared for no matter what type of birth you have, that you're prepared for it. So that's one of the best things you can do to help yourself, is being prepared for whatever situation happens, and maybe a little bit of therapy. I went to therapy for some of the things I couldn't control. If you listen to the episode on how I hated flying, that was one of the things I couldn't control, and going to therapy really helped me out. So if you find that you're having a hard time with those thoughts, emotions, feelings, go to therapy. Just a couple sessions. I think I attended 8 sessions and felt so much better over a variety of things. I think they can help you out. All right. Welcome to season 6. We are starting off hard. Stay tuned. We have some great episodes coming up. Next week, I'm talking about my weight loss journey. And then the week after that, we are talking about aspirin use in pregnancy. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us on the Pulling Curls podcast today. If you liked today's episode, please consider reviewing, sharing, subscribing. It really helps our podcast grow. Thank you.